Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are going to need a little help. We're going to need Brothers Little Helper, which is the episode we're talking about today. And of course, joining me as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could use a little bit of help to get through this one, but I will say that I enjoyed this episode a little bit more than I remembered it going into it. When I first read the description, I was like, oh, but we got a few things to talk about in this one, so get excited, yeah, or calm down a little bit. It's okay, stay focused. I don't know. We're gonna get into this one. Let me throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the retardant himself. It is Miles.
What's that? What's that? Fire truck. So yeah, we are talking about Brothers Little Helper, which originally aired on October 3rd, 1999, getting really close to the end of the year again. The chalkboard gag for this one is pork is not a verb. And the couch gag, that one is really actually kind of fun. The couch gag is a cool sequence where it's like a paint by numbers situation where they're like going through like a assembly line type of process.
But they don't put the black around Homer's eyes, and that always bothers me.
It was left unfinished just because that's how they do it at the like overseas studios essentially before they come back for final touches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this one, you already kind of talked about having different expectations, enjoying it more. I had high expectations for this one, and I do feel like it lived up for the most part. I really enjoyed this episode. There were definitely a couple of things, especially with the technology aspect that we've talked about, how sometimes it catches up and just gets really awkwardly dated. Those Palm Pilot knockoffs were very much that. But I have a lot of strong memories about this episode because I was legitimately like scared of being put on Ritalin when I was a kid because like there was talks of it amongst my folks at one point. And I was like really worried because one of my friends had been put on Ritalin and like he like, man, it makes me feel like a zombie. And I was like, I don't want to feel like a zombie. I like being, spirited, as we'll say.
From the outside looking in, I would say you probably could have benefited from some Ritalin as a child, Miles.
I make up for it now.
And Ritalin always makes you think of the South Park episode where they all get addicted to it and have to take Riddle out to get it off of them.
Riddle out, yeah.
Yeah. You see the little Christina Aguilera monsters. I think that's what they were. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's an old episode, man. That's going back a while. Like probably 15, 16 years at this point. But
so around the same time as this episode.
Yeah, actually. This is a little older than that even. But regardless, I you know what? You're probably not wrong, but I was definitely scared of it. And a big part of that reason was because of like Bart, like, I mean, to be fair, he spoiler alert, he ends up being right about everything, but
why did they take him off?
It gets a little dark there for a while. I guess something Toby would be excited about.
There you go. But he was right, so I don't we'll have to get into that towards the end of the episode.
So let's go ahead and dive into the beginning. We open up at Springfield Elementary School where the kids are taking they're having like fire safety day, essentially. They're in the playground, they have all these exhibits, and Principal Skinner is answering questions from mostly Bart, who's pointing to things and asking, what's that stuff?
Well, I like when Lisa starts out asking him, what's the most important firefighting tool? Is it prevention? He's like, absolutely, that and the sand bucket.
Yeah, you're right. And then Bart starts trying to like egg on Skinner, into saying like inappropriate things essentially because he points out some fire retardant and asks, "What is that stuff?" And then of course when Skinner answers, he giggles and is like, "Sure is." Hey,
the hose thickener.
You need one.
Ooh.
And what's this one?
Just read the label. It's a king size flamer.
Oh, good times. What a time to be alive in the 1999 it was. Bart, will you go bother someone else?
Look, a fire engine.
Skinner starts to freak out for just a second, but Bart's basically just emphasizing fire inappropriately. It's very much like Tobias did Fire Cell when he did the script read for that for the Arrested Development fans out there. We're having a fire cell.
Help, help, fire! Helmets.
And when Skinner asks Bart, can't you go do something constructive?
Sure, I can do something destructive.
And that's when Willie actually walks up to Skinner and he's holding a gardening hoe.
Just say the word, then I'll bury this hole in his back. I can make it look like suicide.
That's actually pretty dark in itself when the groundskeeper is helping off children because they find them obnoxious. I would not have made it through middle school. We then move over to a presentation by Ned and Maude for the volunteer firefighters with Apu kind of narrating, but it's Hosey the bear has shown up and is giving off. I got ahead with the Maude and stuff, but first we go to Hosey the bear. Excuse me. Hosey the bear shows up and he's giving away fire safety tips, but Ralph Wiggum is a little bit confused.
And I want a bike and a monkey, a friend for the monkey.
Hosey's like, you're not going to start any fires, are you?
At my house, we call them uh-ohs.
I feel like there's quite a few uh-ohs at the Wiggum household.
Especially when he's got that leprechaun telling him to start the uh-ohs.
Meanwhile, we see Milhouse is actually petting the mascot Dalmatian, which is so cliche, but hey, it is what it is. But he asks if the dog can do any tricks, and Mo is there to answer.
Hey, he's so inbred he can barely stand up.
And like just on cue, he like topples over,
cross-eyed.
Another part of school. This is where we actually see Skinner and Apu, Ned and Maude are giving like a presentation for the volunteer fire department, allegedly to spread the word on fire safety instead of spreading fire. But Skinner explains fire can be our servant, whether it's toasting s'mores or raining down on Charlie. But it can turn out not so nice, as you'll see in this skit by the volunteer fire department players. And we open up the curtains to reveal Ned dressed like a biker and Maude in like 60s biker chick attire. Yeah.
What a great pot party.
Wasn't it, man?
Now for a regular cigarette to make the night complete.
Oh, I love the touch where Ned actually smokes a cigarette and you can tell he never has before because he's like,
oh man, that's good.
Mad Dog, I've been thinking. Maybe we should get another smoke detector in case that one trips out on us.
Why bother, baby? One smoke detector's enough for Mad Dog. Now let's hit the sack.
So they like do this whole bit where they lie down and Ned's smoking the cigarette and they have prop fire pants on that he actually lights on fire. And Maude's like screaming at him like, stop, drop, and roll, man.
That's for Clyde's, baby. A little fire can't hurt you.
So they close the curtains on that for whatever reason. And this is where Apu comes out and adds some narration to the scene.
But Mad Dog was wrong. The fire burned through the night and cost him the use of his pants, which just goes to show you.
And that's when Ned breaks character. He's like clearly in panic. I'm so sorry to break, but these stunt pants are getting mighty toasty.
Roll, Neddy, roll.
And we see Ned, he does actually stop, drop, and roll, breaking character, but it's like, it's not working. It just spreads the flames. We see the volunteer fire department, who are also these players, go to try to save their buddy by getting the fire hose. But when they get there, they realize that somebody has attached the fire hose and ran it into the school gymnasium. And again, almost as if it's like a scripted television show that has to fit into like real specific time restraints. Bart like bursts through the doors, surfing out of the gymnasium on top of the basketball backboard, and it like completely tidal waves over the rest of like Skinner and whoever else ran to get the hose.
But it does put out the fire on Ned.
It does help Ned out, which he was burning for a while though, dude. Like Bart surfed a wave before they got splashed.
Yeah, but the pants I think have to be insulated in a certain way to like protect the skin slightly. So hopefully Ned's okay.
We assume Ned is okay, but Skinner is like punch a clown mad, and that's actually like what he is doing. He's in his office punching a clown for some reason to like show his frustration, but he's actually called in the Simpsons family.
It's one of those clowns like where like you hit it to the ground and it bounces back up.
Yeah, so, like one of those toy clown things. Yeah. You're right.
It's still, you're just like, oh shit.
But Skinner actually greets the Simpsons.
Thank you for coming.
And I love Homer's response, thank you for getting me out of work.
I'll be blunt. Bart's latest escapade goes far beyond the realm of hygiene.
And we actually we cut to the gymnasium where Willie has been hard at work trying to clean up all the like floor. He's got a blow dryer in his hand and he's drying the gymnasium floor. And he actually he has a great line right here. First of all, I'll explain when you see the basketball floor, like the wooden floor, it's completely warped. It's all like wobbly and shit. And the kids are trying to play basketball and it's going exactly as poorly as you expect it to.
There. Now the floor is as good as new.
And Milhouse takes one to the face. My sports goggles.
So I kind of have experience with this from my job because in one of the huge buildings every once in a while, somebody will accidentally, like on a forklift or something, hit one of the water lines above everyone's head if they have the forklift raised all the way, and it'll cause a leak. And this happened a few months ago where it was like massive amounts of money to repair, but like you had to walk through that building. I did at least the second half of every day, and it was just flooded for days. And like they had to tear up all the floor, like all the linoleum to go down and remodel it basically. But when they tore the floor up, it smelled like a skunk in there forever. Like it was, but like this scene reminded me of that, like the first day or so where they just get the water out and it's like, there, good as new. And it's like, no, this is awful.
Yeah, dude, water does damage, dude. Like it's a powerful force.
But speaking of powerful forces, back to Skinner talking about Bart. Your son is a ravenous demon, relentlessly gnawing at all that's good and true. I don't know why I did that voice for Skinner, but
yeah, he's something else, all right.
But worst of all, he drags down the grades of anyone who sits near him. Just look at this pattern.
And I love this so much. He's actually got both a printout and a 3D model of what they refer to as the ignorance zone or the cone of ignorance. And it shows basically that everybody directly seated around Bart has worse grades than the people further away, which begs the question, why do you let Bart sit in the center of your class if he's clearly the class clown? Like, put his ass in the corner.
But it just makes it funnier, too.
It does make it really funny. And as, like, Skinner is, like, scolding them for, not really scolding, just talking about how he's got such a short attention span, he can't focus on a conversation, we see that Homer has started playing with the 3D cone map and using it as, like, a megaphone to, like, yell out.
And then when everyone's looking at him, he goes, what, time to go? Bart has attention deficit disorder.
Marge screams at him to put it away, but Skinner goes on to explain, very well, there's no escaping the truth. Bart has a classic case of attention deficit disorder.
You mean like John Leguizamo?
How should I know? The point is, ADD makes children restless and easily distracted. And this
is where we get Homer with a megaphone. Hi, Marge, it's me.
Yeah. So through all that, I do want to say as well that this whole script idea comes from George Meyer, who we've talked about a lot on this show, to be fair. He's on almost every DVD commentary, including this one, which featured George Meyer, Mike Scully, Mark Kirkland, Ian Maxtone Graham, Matt Selman, and his first commentary, assistant director of this episode, Tim Long, which is pretty cool. Yes. But this was actually George Meyer's first script back after taking a long hiatus from writing his own script. So he's been on the show working the entire time, but basically a few seasons back, he was just burned out on writing his own scripts, and he just preferred a role where he was punching up jokes and helping other writers write scripts. But this script was kind of his first time back in a few years. And unfortunately, the first draft of it, he was so like just not happy with. It was due, and he just like didn't like how it ended up. That he actually ended up turning it in under a pseudonym. He used the name Vance Jericho. And that has now, at this point, become a running gag, at least at the time of the recording of the commentary. That's more or less turned into like a running gag of like anytime something goes wrong, if there's a joke somebody doesn't like, if something bombs, if there's a flat table read, if anything happens, they're all like, that's Vance again.
What a scapegoat that one is.
Yeah, it's basically like blaming Casper for things that go missing, but in, Simpsons joke writing form.
We need to make hashtag Vance Jericho a thing.
That would be pretty cool.
It's like, 2020, Vance Jericho.
Vance, you son of a bitch, you got us again. So they do go on. Skinner reprimands Homer for using the megaphone or the model as a megaphone. They're like, please, Mr. Simpson, I'm afraid I'm going to have to expel your son. Unless you're willing to try a radical, untested, potentially dangerous...
Candy bar?
No, it's a new drug called Focusin.
A drug? I know Bart can be rambunctious, but he's not some hyperactive monster.
And that's when we actually see Bart appear again, like perfectly timed, in the window. This time he's dressed in it as a cheerleader, doing the old, give me an F, give me an art.
Good Lord, he's gotten into the pep closet.
I'd say he's coming out of the pep closet.
Oh,
that's a good joke. I'm not going to lie. That's funny as hell. But Homer and Marge decide they are going to listen to Skinner. They don't want to see their son expelled. So they go to the farm team, which apparently, according to IMDb, is a joke that will come back around full circle at the end of the episode, because a farm team spelled with an F, as Richie, I'm sure, is well aware, and I learned, I kind of knew, but I read about it for this. Farm teams are a thing in baseball where they like essentially have teams like prospect players play that they can call up from those minor league teams to fill up into the main roster or whatever. Did I get that right, Coach?
No, it's pretty dang close. We'll go with it.
We'll call it good. So in this case, we have the farm team, PHARM, as a pharmacy.
For focusing. So all this F sounds.
I brought up the commentary, and then my ADD ass got distracted. But I also meant to go on to say, I do need the focusing. I also meant to go on to say, in addition to the Vance Jericho stuff, the whole idea for this episode literally just came from the very real life sensation in the late 90s of like, if a kid misbehaves, pump them full of drugs.
Yeah, that was a pandemic of itself, I guess.
In a way, it really was. Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, like it really did feel that way. Like it was like if like all of the like bad kids like just got pumped full of zombie juice, basically.
And then we had
that was a high school
or destroyed the brain. That's just what you do.
Indeed. But we actually see Marge talking with two doctors. I don't want to pump my little boy full of drugs.
Yeah, we get that a lot.
But then they see our results. And they actually use actual guinea pigs in a cage to show the example of how it works.
These are normal guinea pigs running around like idiots. Now I'll give them some focus.
And you just see guinea pigs doing guinea pigs things, like having a good old time. But he gives them some focus in and immediately...
He doesn't give them a pill. He just
that's right. He just sprays them. But yeah, they immediately get like super attentive. They actually take seats in little rows of desks, and they even have a guinea pig puppet that comes out as a teacher, professor, and they all like follow it back and forth.
Like Homer's like, they've become your slaves.
Yes, but it's not about slavery. It's about helping kids concentrate. The pills reduce class clownism 44%. I'm assuming he was supposed to say.
With 60% less sass mouth.
The only thing more effective is regular exercise. I do also like in there somewhere. Marge points out that's amazing and darling. So we see back at the Simpsons home, Bart is playing video games, and there's like just everything happening. It looks like the seizure robots from a few episodes back.
He's playing video games with the same sounds as the game Lisa was playing when she was sick. So I don't know if this is made by the same company. It's a different game, but they're reusing the same sounds. So I'm just going to say bad video game programming.
I did not catch that. Good ear, man. Or did you read that? Either way, good job.
Good ear.
Very good ear.
There's that doom, doom, doom.
So they are discussing, Marge and Homer specifically are coming up with ideas of how they can convince Bart to take his medicine. Only instead of having that conversation, Homer just decided he's going to start shooting. Or no, he says it's a matter of trust. And then he tries to slingshot pills into his son's mouth.
It just keeps missing.
His aim is almost as bad as his decision making. It says, "Yeah, that's not mine. I wish it was."
Yeah, that's funny.
Bart quickly learns the truth, and he's very upset. He's like protesting, "I don't want to take drugs."
Sure you do. All your favorite stars abuse drugs. Brett Butler, Tim Allen,
Tommy Lee,
Andy Dick.
He's just flamboyant.
Yeah, and I'm a size 4.
Random poke at Andy Dick, but yeah, he was definitely on drugs.
I mean, he probably enjoyed it.
He's very, very on drugs too. Like history with that for sure. So they were correct.
In everything. We were talking about Fat Man earlier with Walton Goggins and how he's started being everything. Andy Dick is in everything. Oh, that sounded dirty.
Get Andy Dick out of that. That's the anyway. Homer is like having a standoff with Bart at the treehouse, and Homer's trying to bluff. He's like, "Bart, let's just forget about this whole drug thing. Why don't you just come down here and have some taffy?" And it's like very clearly like taffy stuck with pills.
So much in
like the entire bottle. And Bart sees right to it, but Homer's like, "Come on, just take one bite. If you're not 100% different," and then he gets hit in the head with a soccer ball. Ow. What's the big deal? Look, I'll even eat some. And he goes absolutely crazy, bouncing around and like skitzing out in the backyard. The Flanders, Rod, Todd, and Ned are next door.
Does Mr. Simpson have a demon, Daddy?
Looks like it. Run and get Daddy's exorcism tongs.
Why do they have to be tongs?
Yay!
Like that word just makes it so funny. If it was just
the tongs, yeah.
I wonder how long it took him to
literally extract the demon.
Oh, that's great.
So Marge sees her opportunity, and she reasons with Bart, telling her son that they're not going to force him to take medicine. And at first, Bart is a little bit reluctant, but he comes down, and sure enough, they have like this really tender moment where they kind of smile at each other, and there's like this warmth from Marge that Bart like responds to. But then when he gets to the bottom of the ladder, she's like, "I'm not going to force you, but I just thought you might love me enough to let me help you." And then the like look turns to like super guilt inducing.
Mom, all right, I'll do it for you.
Way to guilt him, Marge.
It's what I do.
I love that line. I'm not even going to say it's my favorite because that's 3 of those will come later, but I really do like this line from Marge. Like, I just think it's quick. It's not like a huge punchline by any means, but it's very fitting and still funny for her character.
It leans into the fact that she knew exactly what she was doing and she was literally guilting him. It wasn't her being like
all the way.
She was planning and plotting.
And it seems like Homer not even thinking about it is like, huh, and then takes another bite of the taffy and then immediately wigs out again. And that actually brings us to the end of our first act. We open up Act 2 the next morning, and we see Bart comes downstairs, greeted by Marge in the usual, like, how's my special little guy sort of way. But Bart replies, "I'm having some side effects from the dope."
That one always gets me. It's not dope. It's something to help you concentrate.
All I know is my testicles won't fit in my underwear. We pan down the camera, and Bart's got like huge mounds in his pants.
Bart, get those oranges out of there. Back in the lunches you go.
And Lisa is like disgusted, like, ew, mom.
Oh, grow up.
Yeah. And that's my favorite Marge line right there, honestly, because like that's so perfect for her too. She's like, they've just been in your brother's pants. Get over it.
It's not like he's a teenager yet.
Oh, yeah, true. Good joke by Bart too, though, for what it's worth.
I had somebody try to pull that on me at Sam Goody once before they closed, where they tried to steal something out the door and they clearly had a rolled up hat or T-shirt stuck in their pants, and the kid tried to tell me it was his junk, and I called his bluff on it.
Nice.
And security took him out. So yeah, don't mess with Richie. I think I laughed at him when he
You
said
will
it was his
check
junk.
your junk.
It was like a 13 or 14-year-old kid telling me that he had like the biggest bulge in his pants that anybody's ever seen, and I just laughed at him.
Ballsy of him to make that bluff.
I like the play on the word ballsy there. Good job.
So during recess, Bart is going to get his medication, and he sees that he's not the only one on meds. Milhouse gets Claritin. Martin is on hormones to help lower his voice, which also makes him more aggressive. And Nelson has to wear a shock collar.
Yeah, Nelson's like whenever he has an inappropriate thought, he gets shocked.
Which is pretty much constantly.
Yeah, I like that Milhouse tries to trade a Claritin to Bart for a focus, and Bart's like, Claritin D, and he goes, no, never mind.
Maybe if it were the good stuff.
Yeah.
But it turns out that it's poetry day in class, and Krabappel asks who would like to read The Daffodils by Wordsworth.
I'll do it.
And immediately Miss Krabappel turns him down, like, no thanks, Mr. Weisenheimer. And she picks on Sherry instead.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills.
Hey, look at those dogs going at it.
And it's Nelson pointing out the window.
And it's just two dogs like fighting over a belt or something. And everybody in the class is like, oh my God, dogs are outstanding. This is great. And when Miss Krabappel goes to break it up, she's like, yeah, we've all seen dogs. So Bart. And Bart is still sitting in his chair, in his desk, facing forward, waiting to learn. The only one in the classroom not distracted.
What?
You're still in your seat.
Well, it's not like I've never seen a dog before.
What? And we get Bart's brain talking. That doesn't sound like me. Could it be the drug kicking in? I am feeling the urge to straighten up and fly right. And we actually see him kind of straighten up, like physically.
Come on, people. This poetry isn't going to appreciate itself.
Very, very weird for Bart Simpson, I would say, in terms of his behavior. Mm-hmm. And this continues after school because Lisa's watching the Krusty Show. And there's a sketch where Sideshow Mel is dressed in a like nice dress gown and is billed as Sideshow Melanie. Ooh, and Krusty actually sees Melanie walk by.
Ooh la la.
And then his prop like bow tie starts spinning like crazy, but it clearly is starting to like choke Krusty and like strangling him. So he actually has to rip it off and he goes to berate his technician.
What are you trying to do to me? I said start it at 60 RPM, then move it up to 100 on the skirt blow.
I'm sorry, Krusty. I choked.
You choked. You choked.
So Lisa's excited. She runs up to Bart's room and is like, Bart, Krusty just fired his associate producer.
I'm reading.
And very, very solemn. Like Bart barely moves. He just moves his neck to look at his sister briefly. And Lisa doesn't believe it. She's like, no way. And she looks. It's the 7 Habits of the Highly Effective Preteens. And Lisa just like can't deal with this, basically. Is this all because of the... She mimes it out.
Joke if you will.
Go ahead.
Miles and Richie combined as one person can read all the lines at the same time.
No, we can.
You know that people use 10% of their brain? I am now one of them. Before, my energy was all over the place. Now it's concentrated like a laser beam. Well, this has been terrific. Let's do it again sometime.
Are you standing up to get me to leave?
From the book.
Hey, I'm not a time burglar.
And this is when Bart gets out his, I almost said trapper keeper.
They refer to it as an electronic organizer. It very much reminds me of like Palm Pilot at the time, like a 1999 Palm Pilot.
Memo to self, locked door.
All right, I'll go. You don't have to be a jerk about it.
Memo to self, shut up, Lisa.
Again, this is like the technology part I was referring to. It's just a little weird, honestly, just because that device was so short-lived. Like, it was so mind-blowing at the time because it was pre-smartphone, but it was like a very short amount of time before like a wire or like a electronic planner basically got added into your phone.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
I do like the 7 habits of the highly effective preteens, and then later I think it's Chicken Soup for the Idiot or something like that. Those are making fun of a very popular book series that were at the time, like just flying off the shelves. And I remember going into bookstores in the 90s and there'd be like the chicken soup for the like everything soul. It'd be like chicken soup for the teenage soul, chicken soup for the chef soul, chicken soup for the podcaster soul, even though I don't think that was a thing back then. but the chicken soup book probably existed.
It probably does by now, at least. But yeah,
if it doesn't, they should. Yeah,
you go into Books A Million or whatever bookstore you had, and they'd have a whole shelf full of all the chicken soup for the whatevers.
Very, very popular series.
Chicken soup for the soupaholic.
So this confrontation is very awkward because, again, we're seeing a very, very different side of Bart, and even Lisa is like kind of in shock over it. But there does seem to be some positive effects because down at the dinner table, there's an envelope waiting for Marge. And we can see that it's actually from Bart, but Marge reads it.
Thank you in advance for a world-class meal. You're an inspiration to our entire organization. Thank you again, Bart. Oh, what a lovely gesture.
Cost of paper, 5 cents. A mother's love, priceless.
Aww.
And then Homer chimes in, do I get a card?
No, but here's a book called Chicken Soup for the Loser that gave Bill Buckner the courage to open a chain of laundromats. Wow, that is another baseball joke there.
My career has kind of lost momentum.
I think it's the bright blue pants. I mean, you're not on the golf course.
I love this random call out after 11 seasons that they're not jeans, I guess. I have been thinking about making them into cutoffs. And then, of course, we immediately cut to Homer at work where he has, in fact, cut off his shorts to the point that his pockets are sticking out the bottom.
I tell you, the kid's a wonder. He organized all the lawsuits against me into one class action.
So before we get too far ahead, I do want to say that Cost of Paper, 5 cents, A Mother's Love Priceless is just another parody of those very popular, I think they were MasterCard commercials at the time. But it was like everything. They did a bunch of these too. It was almost as many as like the Got Milk ads, but like it was just tons of situations where it's like a Thanksgiving turkey, $40, bracelet for your girlfriend, $150. That perfect moment on the holidays, priceless. Whatever the hell it was, they did a bunch of them.
Peace and quiet away from your families during Christmas break, priceless.
PS5 not from a scalper, $500, but totally worth it.
But also priceless.
Also priceless.
Why aren't they marketing stuff like that right now?
So Lenny is back at work with Homer and his cutoffs. Lenny's kind of into he's impressed with Bart's progress. He's like, that's got to save all kinds of travel time. Replying to Homer's one big class action lawsuit.
You know it. Plus, he gave me this appointment dealie. It's got my whole week in there.
And we see that Homer also has a Palm Pilot or electronic planner, and he just writes things in there like I don't remember what he wrote in here. It's something very, very basic.
I'll ask it how many leagues are in their furlong.
Well, no, but he said he has this entire week in there. I think it was literally like go home, drink beer, or something like that. It's not written down, and I don't remember, but it was something very simple of that nature.
Yeah.
His entire week. But yeah, he asks how many leagues is in a furlong. No, wait, I'll make it say, what's a matter, you, in Turkish.
Well, then, I don't know how to do the Turkish part. So what's a matter, you, in Turkish.
It's an impressive piece of technology in 1999. And look, it even comes with a cheese grater.
Ooh, Man, technology is amazing.
A guy can do great things with a gadget like that.
Oh, if you want one, they sell them at...
Yeah, a guy can do great things.
Carl's not impressed. He doesn't give two shits. That was just weird to me. I don't oh, Carl.
So we see Bart back at home. He's like legit just like the perfect student. He's studying. He's actually tutoring a Navajo boy, teaching him nursery rhymes from a corporate self-improvement perspective. So Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall because
he took his eyes off the prize.
That's right.
Wow.
Homer chimes in.
He's gone from Goofus to Gallant, and we owe it all to mind-bending pills.
And he actually the bottle a little kiss, which is kind of funny. And that Goofus to Gallant is a reference to the comic strip Goofus and Gallant, which appeared in Highlights, which is a children's magazine. Basically, it was one of those. I know that they did a version of this on All That. I can't remember what the All That version was, but it was basically you've got one person that just does everything wrong, and then another person that does everything perfect. They did this with like manners books and other things of that nature.
The best part about the highlight books is that you only got them when you went to the dentist office, but you'd always go to the page where you had to find all the things in the picture.
Yes, 100%. That I don't even know if that magazine had other articles.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had to try to get all of them before it was time for you to go back.
It was both the best thing about the dentist office and the shittiest magazine ever. Like it's like somehow fit both categories.
It pissed me off when people had the items circled and like marked off at the bottom. I was like, no, this is for everybody.
Public magazine, douche. Yeah. That is very, very frustrating.
What a highlight that was.
Almost as frustrating as the fact that my computer is currently stuck and I can't get the script backed up. So, Richie, take it away.
All right, let's go ahead here. Richie will be playing the role of all characters. Stretch time in Arlington. Here we go. Bart's so well behaved now. Maybe you and I can have a night out. Woo! Let's go to the water park. The 10-year ban ended yesterday. I was thinking of something a little more adult. Oh, Marge. And then afterwards, really? With butterscotch on it? I think you misheard me. All right, this is tiring already. Are you back?
I was back a while ago. I just thought you were doing a great job. Honestly, I'm reevaluating my need to be here at all. But Homer and Marge do end up going to see a very classic American film, Showgirls, which is record hold. We could probably do one of our Best Darn Everything episodes on like the history of Showgirls, just because it's got like a really surprisingly rich history for a movie about strippers with Jesse from Saved by the Bell.
Oh.
But yeah, they're very much enjoying it. On the commentary, I did laugh because they pointed out in the animation department, they're like, yeah, we would not be allowed to draw the breasts that large by today's standards. They would definitely have gotten back to us on that.
What a day and age we lived in.
Yep. Good times. Good times. Thanks, Fox, for lowering the standards for what was acceptable at the time. Or raising them, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. Beginning them.
So we actually, the date seems like it goes great. There is a point where they're Homer and Marge chat, and like everybody is in the theater yelling at Marge and Homer to shut up, including Milton.
They all start yelling at each other, it seems like, too.
Mm-hmm. Shh.
What I appreciate about that moment is like when they cut to the next scene, they're not upset about it still. They're still having, like they say, they had a great time. And that's something, like, to just go on a little bit of a tangent here. I feel like a lot of people in life focus on like the one bad thing that happens, and look at Marge and Homer. They had a great day, even though like one little bad thing happened. They still enjoyed their time together, and I think that's sweet.
Aww. Gay?
Yeah. That's coming out.
But they do eventually get home where they see Lisa, who is very, very happy to see them and is like, I'm so glad you're here. Bart's acting really funny.
She's on the front porch with Maggie, and they're
like outside the house.
Yeah. Ray J funny or OJ funny?
Yikes! But they actually go up to Bart's room where they see that he has like hung coat hangers and strung everything or covered everything in tinfoil. He's like wearing a tinfoil hat. He's got a tinfoil shield wrapped around the garbage can lid. And he immediately, in a very calm manner, is like, "You're probably wondering about the coat hangers. They're to block the satellite that's been spying on me."
Okay.
You can read your electric organizer from space.
Even mine?
And Bart actually grabs it and smashes it.
Hey, I had Lenny's name on that.
They have it now.
Who are they exactly?
Who else? Major League Baseball.
Arge, I think Bart's gone crazy.
Oh, Bart, what's happened to you?
Nothing yet, but the time draws near.
And you actually see he pulls out pliers and he's goes for her her fillings, not her feelings. She has feelings about him going for her fillings.
Now let's get those feelings out of you.
Hey, you found my needle nose pliers, yoink. And like he takes, like, he's not even upset that Bart was about to try to pull out Lisa's teeth. Like, he's like completely fine with that. He's just excited to have his needle nose pliers back.
Well, and this is the first scene that I noticed where they had Bart's pupils really, really small. Like, they were not normal size to make him look. It's surprising that little animation change lets him look like extra crazy.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to save it for the end, but since you already got there, we'll talk about it now. There is a bunch of discussion on the size of the pupils, if they should be larger, if they should be smaller, how they should make them work. And they actually ended up going back in time to reference their own, like when Homer had gotten, I think he like licked a toad in the past or did something, and his eyes got all big because he was like tripping, but they felt like since this was like a focus drug, they should go the opposite direction.
Oh, okay. I'm just glad that they like think about stuff like that and talk about it.
It's funny that they probably spent more time talking about the size of the eyes than anybody ever would think to realize. Like,
yeah,
it's a lot of like, but what if we did this? And they do have to get Bart back to the farm team because he's clearly acting like a loon. Nothing that he's saying could possibly turn out to be true. It's incredibly wacky, like all conspiracy theories. But Homer and Bart get back, and he's running on a treadmill, and he's got all these electrodes stuck to himself.
I understand the electrodes, but why does he have to be on a treadmill?
Oh, that was his idea. He said he felt fat.
Oh.
They interview them and figure out that Bart's concerned about satellites and beams, and they asked if he had any other strange behavior, and Homer explains, yeah, he quit blinking. He says that's when they kill you.
Oh, I had a feeling that might happen. This carboxyl group sometimes causes problems.
And we trusted you. And he starts strangling. He's like upset at the model. He starts strangling the model.
Like atom breakdown or molecule breakdown.
Marge wants to take him off the drug, but the farm team is immediately resistant to that idea.
Whoa. You can't just go off focusing.
But we can ease Bart onto one of its sister drugs, like chlorhexidine, and augment that with some phenolbutamine.
Good job, Miles. And maybe some cyclobenzene.
That's a great idea. And the two kiss because they're apparently a pharmacy couple.
Cyclobenzenone. Okay, that sounds better now.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Bart is not, like, as much as he didn't want to go on to Focus-In to begin with, he's even more upset about going off of Focus-In. And they actually like try to bribe him. They're like, we'll give you 3 of the phenolbutamine. And he's like, no!
He runs
and then he runs and actually grabs a giant jar of Focus-In that just happens to be nearby. And originally in the script, they actually had him like choking him down, but they basically are like, yeah, you can't do that. You can't have a kid like chugging drugs out of the bottle. So they went with instead, which is clearly better. Stop him! He's whacked out of his gourd.
This is after he like jumps out the window.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we have a procedure for these situations.
And we see him push a button labeled Valium, which causes a big tub of Valium to descend. And both Marge and Homer get a needle in their arm that immediately you see Marge is like, But Homer has a different reaction.
Hey, there was just air in mine.
He like clutches his chest, and he clearly is having issues because he collapses to the ground, which would probably mean he's dead if it wasn't for the fact that he's unbreakable. But that does bring us to the end of Act 2. And we
don't want to know what happens if they were stepping like half a step to the left or right. Those needles would have missed them.
Yeah, or like got him like somewhere. Yeah, it could have been. It's a weird button to push, and it's a weird system that they have in place for this situation. And it does nothing to help Bart, mind you. Bart is having a good time.
Yeah,
that's what's important. So we see Marge and Homer are actually trying to find their kids. I think Marge would. I guess she like willed the Valium away. But they give a description of Bart to Chief Wiggum for some reason. He doesn't remember who Bart is, who the lovable scoundrel of the neighborhood or the town. But they're describing him as a tow-headed with a button nose and a mischievous smile. And sure enough, they end up drawing Dennis the Menace. And even Wiggum is like, hey, it looks like the kid that's been harassing the Wilson widow. That's what it is, Wilson.
Yeah, which just makes it a little dark.
Yeah. Apparently, Mr. Wilson didn't fare so well against Dennis.
I mean, it could be the other way around.
I guess so. So it's Marge is still off looking for Bart, but it's starting to get hot. So Homer is actually more. He's starting to read like the side of the bottle. He's like, "Oh, why didn't we pay attention to these side effects? It includes paranoia and diarrhea."
Bart doesn't have diarrhea.
But we can see that while he doesn't have diarrhea, he does have a lot of psycho crazy going on because he's marching into Fort Frag, which is an army base, and inside one of the barracks, he goes into the showers where he hears two soldiers having a conversation about how the like drill sergeant's being too harsh on him. I don't even think we are the worst bunch that he's ever seen.
But he said...
I know what he said, but he was just trying to motivate us.
Well, it ruined the whole hike.
I love that line so much. And while they're having this conversation in the shower, Bart's able to actually like walk in, go to their pants, get a set of keys, chuckle, and sneak back out.
Do you think Alex would mind if I asked Janet out?
They're married, idiot.
Why'd you have to yell? You ruined the whole shower.
This guy's very sensitive for the army. So Homer is also trying to find his son, but he does get a little bit distracted at Moe's, and Marge is originally really mad, but it turns out Homer is actually on top of it. And we follow, he's got a string tied to his finger, which runs all the way back to the alley behind Moe's, where it's attached to a stick that has a box hanging from it with a bottle of Focusin underneath it. So it's a very primitive trap, basically.
Great trap. I mean, that's exactly what he wants.
I mean, if he happens to go by Moe's and wanders into the alley, since pills don't really put off a scent, sure.
But laser focused, you can find them.
They're not finding him, but it turns out that it's going to be a lot easier to find him soon because those keys were actually for a tank. Bart is like driving it down Main Street.
Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Don't stop. It'll soon be here.
And we see Burns and Smithers sunbathing, and Burns is looking out with, Smithers is looking out with binoculars. He's like, no, I had it right the first time. Burns is looking out with binoculars, and he sees Bart driving the tank down the street.
Smithers, we're at war.
I'll begin profiteering, sir.
And hoarding. Leave it to the Democrats to let the Spaniards back in the pantry.
How old is that war? I do love that they immediately know that it's time to start profiteering and hoarding. That hits a little differently after I ran out of toilet paper a few months back.
Yeah, that is how the hierarchy works.
We see Bart drives past the comic book shop, and he's just leaving like cars and destruction behind him. EGAD. EGAD, a maniac cutting a swath of destruction. This is a job for the Green Lantern, Thundra, or possibly Ghost Rider.
Well, what about Superman?
Oh, please.
Thank you, comic book guy.
The tank comes actually down on Krusty's clown car, which is not able to get out of the way, but Krusty orders everybody to get out of it, and of course it's like an entire troop of tons of clowns getting out.
It's like a mini slug bug, basically, but there's so many clowns in there. But poor Sir Widebottom.
He gets his butt stuck in the door.
But it's good to know his butt isn't real because the tank rolls over it and pops his butt.
It deflates.
I'm alive, but I wonder why.
I guess he became attached to his prosthetic. We actually see that it bursts through the town's bookmobile, which then that's actually to the approval of the town's children, and that's when actually the police are able to get on its tail, and Wiggum orders Lou to shoot out the tires.
Chief, the tank doesn't have tires.
And Wiggum's like noticeably mad at him.
Again with it? Like, what is it with you lately?
We finally see that Bart goes to Springfield Elementary School. What a day. First the drinking fountain squirt, and then Skinner is like, what a day. First the drinking fountain squirts me, and now this. Totally the same page, Skinner.
Yep.
We also see the rest of the Simpsons family. Like I said, when Bart steals the tank, it makes it considerably easier for him to be found. Yeah. So Marge actually stands in the path of the tank, attempting to stop her son and make him see reason.
My God, is she brave standing up to that freaked out junkie?
Dad, that junkie is your son.
Why don't you just tell everybody?
And the tank actually pulls up within inches of Marge, and Bart pops out of the top. Hey, Mom, thanks for coming out.
Oh, thank you for stopping the tank.
Oh, it ran out of gas.
Oh.
That's the darkest joke in the episode.
Yeah. Like there's just not even a change on his face. Not even a change in his expression.
So this whole scene here is also a historical reference to the Tiananmen Square, which I meant to have information up on because I totally know what that is. I know this from pictures. You see, like, it's like a protester standing up to a exactly like what war or when. It's a famous picture where you can see the protesters. Military, essentially.
I think everybody gets what you're trying to say there. That was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I'm frozen again, so I'm gonna have to have you pick up the tag. This is really frustrating.
Yeah, your mic was cutting in and out for a second, but it seems to be back here. So I will be playing the role of Marge and Bart. This is Richie Does Everything Part 2.
All right, I'm back.
Okay, good. I was stalling.
Go ahead. No, you got this. I'll sit back for a minute.
So Bart, question. How about getting out of the tank, eh? Maybe stopping your rampage, eh? We could go to Krusty Burger. Okay, sure. Woo! Right after I blow up one thing. Oh.
And we actually see this is when the tank's turret starts to swivel and point at various things. At first, it looks at the school, which Skinner's very upset about, but Jimbo's like, all right, scud the school, dude.
Cribopple.
And this is the best line in the episode, hands down, by any character. Miss Cribopple.
No, stop. Think of the children.
And just as deadpan as possible of a voice by Marsha Wallace. It's beautiful. Then it moves and points away from the school and goes towards the church, which gets Lovejoy upset after all he screams out, Jesus lives there.
And then he aims at a frame shot.
They then move just like the store. Yeah, it goes to the frame store, which Homer's appalled by. You monster! But then it moves away from the frame store and points up into the sky, which even somebody, Sideshow Mel in this case, is upset about.
The sky? That's where clouds are born.
But Bart does, in fact, fire into the birthplace of the clouds. And shortly after, we see a satellite come crashing down to Earth. And immediately, everybody, the volunteer fire department shows up. They don't know what to do with a satellite fire. Finally, Apu is like, let's just spray some water on it already.
He's like, dude, come on.
There's no entry for satellite fire.
I feel like Apu's had a few times in the last season where everyone's just getting too ridiculous, and he's the one that reins everybody in.
He's the voice of reason, the ground character.
Of the
that
adults.
makes sense. Wiggum shows up and snatches Bart. Yeah, that's the end of your Looney Tune drugs, Bunny. You're under arrest for astro vandalism.
And may God help you if that thing carried the Spice Channel.
But that's when Mo notices something. Or I'm sorry, it's actually Marge that notices something. They walk up the satellite after the fire's out, and they see it's actually got the Major League Baseball logo on it. And Bart goes on to say, I told you they were monitoring my activities.
And then Lenny opens up the panel. He's right. This thing's got info on everybody. Addresses, credit ratings, what size baseball hat they wear.
And the best part about this joke is this satellite actually has a physical printout on paper of all of this information, apparently. And it's just like constantly cycling off paper, which makes no sense whatsoever. Less sense than the Major League Baseball spying on people. The computer from the satellite actually speaks, and in the show, it's actually voiced by Mike Scully. Surveillance system disabled, marketing research shutting down. Doesn't that beat all?
And then within seconds, a freaking helicopter lands right beside it, and somebody steps out.
And we actually get a special guest appearance from Mark McGwire, who is probably the most famous or popular baseball player at the time. It was either that year or within a year or so that he famously got into a home run, like neck and neck competition with Sammy Sosa. So he was like huge at the time. And actually, that's something else. Speaking of huge, the commentary track talked about when he showed up for the voice recording. And like most guests, they talked about how great he was. But one thing that they did actually mention was they described him as one of the biggest men they'd ever seen in their life. Just physically imposing dude. But to his credit, he was very funny, very fun, very willing to take direction. He got the humor, and he did a great job reading the lines. I like it when he tucks the printout under his hat to like conceal it. Yeah, and we get the classic yoink. But yeah, even the computer is like Big Mac himself. Who'd have thunk it?
Young Bart here is right. We are spying on you pretty much around the clock.
But why, Mr. McGuire?
Do you want to know the terrifying truth? Or do you want to see me suck a few dingers?
The crowd erupts. Dingers! Dingers! And
that's when he goes yoink and puts the printouts under his hat, yoink, which you can still clearly see. And then he does.
Yeah, his hat's like sitting
as much as you know the steroids crap and all the stuff you don't like. In this moment, at least, my favorite part is he does the shifty eyes. So we get him 2 weeks in a row. First time it was the dog. This time it's McGuire's doing shifty eyes while the printout's under his hat.
Very funny stuff. And yeah, you're right. 2 weeks in a row of the same idea, but it works animation wise. We get back to the Simpsons house. Everything is back to normal. Lisa's excited to have her old brother back. And plus, he exposed the disturbing unreadiness of today's army.
I enjoyed that a lot. He just walked in and stole the keys to a tank and took it right off the property.
No problem. You just have to be focused.
Oh, Bart. I'm so sorry we sent you on that psychotropic hayride.
At least I got to see some cool colors.
And Mark McGwire gave you an autographed bat. And this is why.
And they actually hold it up. They see like a serial number on it. And Lisa's like, why is the 0 made of glass?
And it's clearly a camera.
Oh, yeah. We actually cut behind. You can see that it's like they're getting like a fisheye view. Yeah, it's a really cool animation.
It's not a serial
shot.
Number, Miles. It's the number 70, which is the home run record he set from the previous season. That's why you know it's after and not before that happened.
That makes sense. Does that record still hold?
Barry Bonds broke it.
With how much more steroids?
Probably. I mean, honestly, they were probably about the same, but Bonds probably did it a lot longer.
Yeah. It was just that was the style at the time.
Yeah, sure. And keep those records, but Pete Rose gambled on baseball, so don't keep his all-time hit record in the books.
Homer decides to wave off the idea that the 0 is made of glass. He's like, who cares? That man can really slug it.
Well, I'm not going to give my baby any more dangerous drugs. From now on, it's nothing but fresh air, lots of hugs, and good old-fashioned ritalin.
And we actually see Bart takes a handful, and he says, and he actually takes a mouthful and says, you said a mouthful. When I can't stop my fiddling, I just take me ritalin. I'm popping and sailing, man. Toot toot. We actually get like the weird iris out on Bart, and on the end credits for this one, as the shh comes out, we get all of the we get people saying like, "Oh, why'd you have to shush? You ruined the whole show," just like the army guy from earlier. And that brings us to the end of the episode, Brother's Little Helper. Before I go with you, I just realized I completely forgot a thing right at the top. Brother's Little Helper is actually a reference to a phrase, Mother's Little Helper, which was basically slang for like the drugs they used to prescribe women in the like 50s and 60s, essentially. Usually barbiturates.
I feel like that was made up.
No, it's 100% real.
Just start saying random words.
Even in the, it's actually in the. You thought barbiturate was made up?
We should do like a game show. We should do like a game show. It's like drug name or fake name, and see if we can get any of this.
We'll do that on one of our best on everything. We'll quiz Richie. What do you actually know about drugs? But that does bring us to the end of Brother's Little Helper. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours?
Yeah, I remembered like halfway through the show afterwards, the note Homer had on his little Palm Pilot thing, it was get sunscreen for legs because he had cutoffs.
He had the cutoffs. That's exactly.
And I wanted to mention that, but I figured I should wait till now. But yeah, it's this episode. It was like I know you said you were really looking forward to it, but I really wasn't looking forward to it that much, and I feel like it was a lot better than I remembered it. And I think it's one of those like classic times where like I'm just enjoying it more because I had low expectations for it. But I remember the first time I saw this episode after all the steroid scandal with McGuire. It feels different when you see it now, knowing everything that happens later on, kind of like the Mel Gibson stuff from a previous week. So there's definitely another similarity between the two episodes.
It's whatever 21 years can do.
But it's just, I want to know what Major League Baseball is planning, damn it. Tell me.
Yeah, what was the conspiracy all about?
But IMDb does point out one continuity error where Bart asks the family to close the door to his room, and you hear the door slam, but like in the following shot, the door is wide open still. So besides that, it was a good time. Fun was had by all. Take it away, Miles.
Last things I'll point out is after the scene where Bart floods the school and Skinner gets completely covered with mud, he does a 2-finger swipe across his eyes. And that is apparently a reference to the American actor Oliver Hardy, who is known for doing that commonly, like when he'd take like a pie to the face, he'd do like the pie cover and like to, wipe his face. That was an homage to him. And then also, we do know that Nancy Cartwright is the person that voices Bart Simpson. And funny enough, when just a small connection, she didn't voice Popeye himself, but she actually did voice a character on Popeye and Son. She voiced Woody on that show, and that came out in 1987. So she had some ties to Popeye the Sailor Man, and they did that parody, which was really fun.
Interesting.
But that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly. Make sure you follow the Wiz Kid. He's at the Wiz_Kid23.
Make sure you follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off all over social media. But most importantly, make sure you give our show a follow. It's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. And we really appreciate all you guys tuning in and listening and watching and critiquing Miles's terrible clothing.
Is that what I have? Do I have clothing?
I'm not even looking at the screen right now. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's cool. That is not correct. I'm looking at the next episode, and it is definitely pulling up the wrong episode. But hey, it's cool. We'll figure it out. Next week's a Best Darn Anything anyway, so we haven't figured out what we're talk about, but we will.
You said Best Darn Anything.
Best Darn Anything, Best Darn Everything. The show's 2 fucking weeks old. I'll figure it out eventually. Next week, we'll be back with a random topic we have not discussed or figured out yet, but we will come up with something fun that we want to talk about. And then in 2 weeks' time, we will be back with the 3rd episode of the 11th season of The Simpsons, which is Guess Who's Coming to Criticize Dinner.
In next week's episode, it's going to be a manic cutting a swath of destruction. It'll probably be a podcast about, Green Lantern Tundra, or possibly Ghost Rider.
What about Superman?
Please.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.